27 Cubans played in the majors in 2021. This is just short of the record 30-plus from a few years back, but nonetheless, Cubans are having a major impact in the biggest league in the world. Some are household names, some are familiar to those who follow the Cuban game closely, and a few are names hopefully you'll remember moving forward. Let's take a quick look at each of these players, whether they had Cuban National Series success, and their highlights from 2021. José Abreu, of course, bookended his 2010 Cuban MVP with the Cienfuegos Elefantes by winning the 2020 American League MVP. He regressed slightly in 2021, but fell just short of leading the AL in RBI with 117. P2 is still one of the best Cubans playing today. Yordan Alvarez returned from dual knee surgery and erased any concerns on the immediate impact. He led the Astros in home runs and RBI and took home the ALCS MVP award. The former Las Tunas Lenadore showed flashes in his 2 seasons in Cuba, but has far exceeded expectations in the show so far. Many wondered how Randy Arozarena would follow up on his scorching 2020 playoff, where it seems he broke every batting record available. Well, the Pinar del Rio Vaqueros product did come back to earth a bit, but still qualified for and took home Rookie of the Year honors. One of the newer names on the list is José Barrero, who used to be known as José García. He played briefly with Industriales in 2017. The 23-year-old middle infielder had 50 at-bats with the Cincinnati Reds, and center field may be in his future. Ronald Bolanos is the first pitcher to make the list. The 24-year-old righty skipped playing in the National Series and has been in the Royals minor league system since 2017. He debuted with 6.1 innings for Kansas City. The Cuban missile, Aroldis Chapman, had an incongruent year. He started off the season unhittable, but some speculate he lost his edge when MLB cracked down on gripping substances. Many of his numbers still looked impressive. 97 strikeouts and 56 innings pitched is still ridiculous, but he unofficially lost his closer's role for a while and will need to be better in high-leverage situations for a team with World Series ambitions. Nestor Cortes Jr. is the first player on the list that spent his formative years in the States, but did live in Santa Clara for a decade. The journeyman lefty found a nice swing role for the Yankees, starting 14 of his 22 appearances with a tidy 2.90 ERA. His future appears to be in a rotation somewhere. I've argued former Villa Clara Naranja Aledmys Díaz is one of the top utility players in the game. Injuries limited him to 84 games with Houston, who are loaded with Cubans. He hit a respectable .259 with 8 home runs. His 45 RBI, though, are actually impressive in just under 300 at-bats. Another Díaz from Villa Clara, however no relation to Aledmys, Yandy Díaz, has slotted in as a nice versatile piece for Tampa. He split his time between first and third base with solid on-base skills. His power rebounded with 13 round trippers. Oddly, this almost looks like a pattern, with totals of 1, 14, 2, and 13 home runs in the past 4 seasons. Adolis García is one of the better stories, and one I've chronicled on my site. The former Ciego de Avila League MVP was DFA'd near the end of spring training. He did accept a minor league assignment back with the Rangers. Injuries saw him called up in April, and he only went on to become the first rookie ever with 30-plus home runs, 15-plus steals, and 15-plus outfield assists. Yasmani Grandal is similar to Nestor Cortes in that he grew up in Florida. He makes most lists of fantasy Cuban squads as the only qualifying catcher. He had a unique season, spending much of it below the Mendoza line. He did rebound to finish at a passable .240, though. His .420 on-base percentage and .520 slugging, though, had many debating if batting average is outdated as a stat. Ironically, .240 is his career average. Was it much ado about nothing? I'd probably take him on my squad. Lourdes, Yanito, Gurriel Jr., of course comes from a great bloodline and has tantalized at points. At 27, he played his first full season, assuming you don't count 2020. He rebounded from a slow start to finish at .276 with 21 home runs and 84 RBIs. The Blue Jays find themselves with a glut of outfielders, and Gurriel could be on the move, which might be a better fit for him. Yuli Gurriel joined Tony Oliva as the second Cuban to win a batting title. Oliva was just inducted into the Hall of Fame by the Veterans Committee. Gurriel, at 37, became the oldest first-time winner. His .319 average was driven largely by contact, as Yuli ranked as one of the hardest batters to K in the game. Vladimir Gutierrez finished 7th in NL Rookie of the Year voting. I've frequently said Cuban pitchers have lagged behind their batting counterparts, but Gutierrez is part of a young cohort of hurlers that are starting to ascend. The Reds also fly under the radar, but have a system full of young Cubans. Guillermo Heredia got into 120 games for the Braves. The fourth outfielder did get 305 at-bats, but acted largely as a pinch runner and offensive replacement in Atlanta's run to the title. He did get a ring and a one-year, $1 million deal for 2022 out of it. Yadiel Hernández was on the cusp of running out of time. He was called up in 2020 at age 32, and his role for 2021 was uncertain. He did play 112 games for the Nats in 2021 and definitely belonged. The aging Matanzas product might consider Korea or Japan in the future to extend or maximize his playing and earning potential, though. Andy Ibañez joined Adolis García in the Rangers lineup, but the versatile former Pirata from La Isla might be the odd man out, with Texas spending big on Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. Their infield is suddenly loaded. El Candelita José Iglesias signed what I thought might be the best value deal of the offseason with the Angels. Unfortunately, his dazzling glove has regressed a bit and his batting underwhelmed slightly. He did hit .356 in a small sample after landing with the Red Sox. A utility role could be in his future. Another Iglesias, who joined the Angels. This one might be the best Cuban closer in baseball and by proxy, best Cuban pitcher overall. Rizal appeared in 65 games, saving 34, and struck out 103 in 70 innings pitched. He walked a minuscule 12 batters. He often flies under the radar for how effective he has been over his 7 seasons in the show. Yoan Lopez took a step backward. He was hoping to establish himself as a high-leverage reliever for the D-backs, even though rebuilding Arizona doesn't find themselves in these situations often. His 6.57 ERA saw him released. He did sign on with Atlanta and is in their minor league system. Yoan Moncada's breakout 2019 is his current peak. However, the 26-year-old is still just approaching his prime and plays Gold Glove caliber D at third. His batting leaves Shy Sox Nation wanting more, but you can still do a lot worse than a .375 on-base percentage. Watch his strikeout ratio, which has been the biggest harbinger of his struggles. Adrian Morejon, formerly of Mayabeque, was slated to compete for a rotation spot with the Padres. It ended up being a disappointing season for Morejon and the Friars. Adrian tossed just 4.2 innings before he required Tommy John surgery. Will we see him in 2022? Best wishes for a quick recovery and a rebound. Darian Nunez auditioned for a role as a solid lefty option out of the Dodgers bullpen. The 28-year-old from Las Tunas got into 6 games, including a start. The sample is too small to make a real assessment, but he did allow 1.5 base runners per inning, and his 8.22 ERA needs to shrink big time. Johan Oviedo started 13 games for the Cardinals, going 0-5 with a whip of 1.5. In 2 years, his record stands at 0-8, but he did show enough to at least get a chance to get on the right side of the ledger. At just 23, it is still early. Cionel Perez jumped from one organization stocked with Cubans in the Astros to another in the Reds, before being released and the Orioles adding him to their mix. The versatile lefty pitcher threw 24 innings and did strike out 25, but his 6.38 ERA didn't dazzle. Many of the young Cuban arms struggled, but hopefully we'll get the chance to figure it out. I've been chronicling Luis Robert since his time in Cuba, and an early hip injury cost the 23-year-old stud most of the year. But when he was active, he showed off what has many predicting huge things for El Pantera. An odd nickname, considering he played for the Tigres of Ciego de Avila, but I digress. A .338 average with 13 bombs and just 275 at-bats. Is he just scratching the surface? And last, but certainly not least, a player who may have rebuilt his value at the last hour and on the most important stage. Jorge Soler looked like his 48 home run outburst of 2019 was going to be the peak, and it might be, but a move to Atlanta rejuvenated the slugger, and his 3 home runs in the World Series brought him World Series MVP honors. The Braves were running on Soler power. As always, subscribe here on YouTube, smash the like button like a hanging slider, or share this video.